Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Gerard Michaels. You're a baseball player.
I was, yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I was. Now I'm a comedian and a podcaster and all those other things. But I was at one point in time an athlete. Yeah, looks can be deceiving.
How was it?
It was best. If anybody has an opportunity to be a pro athlete at any level, I would highly recommend it. 5 stars.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not here to talk about your failure, though. I was thinking about it. I blew my fucking shoulder up in like my junior year of high school, in between junior and senior year, playing American Legion ball. It was like, yeah, you can fix this. It's just going to take a while. I'm like, yeah, it seems like a lot of work for something that probably won't. I mean, statistically, it's unlikely to pay off down the road. Like, I threw in the low 90s at that point, but it's like, that doesn't mean shit.
Well,
you can throw 100
in the low 90s in high school. That's pretty significant.
It was not anymore, but back then it was. But yeah, I couldn't. It's a long road, and I had other plans. But
it's very important that you know, though, I would have taken that weak shit deep.
Who were we playing? I think we were playing Travelers Rest High School, and I gave up a fucking check swing home run, and that was the point that I realized that velocity doesn't mean shit.
Location
doesn't mean
location.
shit. Yeah, it was an opposite field check swing home run too. It was just
So you
like,
beat him. You beat him twice.
Yeah, and I still lost.
Well, that also goes to show, like, when you throw with velocity, high risk, high reward. You know, that's what a lot of people don't know. Out of all things sports, I think it would be incredible if, like, you know, the pros versus Joes things. I wish people would go to the stadium and there would be like a simulator outside and just see what 97 miles an hour looks like.
Yeah, instead of the how fast can you throw thing, they should put you in they made those batting cages back in the day that would have like Randy Johnson up
the
there.
simulator. Yeah.
Now it would be, they would look real.
Well, they got like a $75,000 one that
Yeah.
is in a lot of the ballparks that actually you can upload. It has 3 different holes for the arm slot. And you can upload the pitcher, like the DHs that are coming up or pinch hitters.
Yeah.
They go taking at bat. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they have one in so for the Marlins, the club area for the really nice seats behind the home plate, you can see the batting cage through there. But they have one of those, but you can't see into it. But that would be a cool thing to see. Also 3 holes. Awesome.
Can't beat that.
We're also not here to talk about holes today. We're here to talk about America, which has some holes in it. More specifically, holes in the culture, I think. You know, there's... do you know Jeremy Ryan Sleet?
Yes.
He was my last episode.
Okay.
We talked a lot about Rome, as we would, because he's, you know, he knows quite a bit about it. And we lingered on the Roman concept of virtus, you know, virtue, not virtue as in chastity or religious virtue or anything like that, but virtus in like the sense of courage, discipline, wisdom, service, and honor. You know, the things that a man should be. Vir literally means man, right? And I think maybe, so we get our system of laws from Rome, our governance, we get separation of powers that Montesquieu later enumerated, but it originally came from Rome. We get a lot of stuff from them.
And they got a lot from Greece. Greece got
Sure.
a lot from the Phoenicians.
Yeah, the Greeks fucked up a lot. They tried a lot of different things and fucked up a lot of things and got some right, got a lot wrong. Rome learned from them. And then our founders learned not just from Rome, but from, you know, the struggles of Protestantism through the Middle Ages, the Liberty Movement, the Magna Carta, the Agreement of the People, all that stuff. But we've unlearned most of it, seems like, you know. I still think we've got the best system of government that you can have on paper. It's not being executed on. Like the 10th Amendment is non-functional in every meaningful way. So we got some issues there, but I do still think that...
the only amendment that's functioning in the way that it should be functioning, well, I guess you can say I guess you could say the 19th, but really the Third Amendment is really like, the only amendment that's actually, like, there are no soldiers in your house.
Yeah.
And that one has not been infringed upon.
Yeah.
The rest of them are gone. Fourth Amendment's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, but do you deserve, I know that these are unalienable rights from God, but do you deserve to have what you can't keep? Like, this is my argument when it always comes to people with colonization and West. Do you deserve to have what you can't keep? Do we deserve to have rights that we refuse to even know, let alone fight to maintain?
I mean, no is the obvious answer. Ben Franklin said at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, he used the phrase very famously, "A republic if you can keep it," right?
Sure.
Jefferson would use the phrase, "It's on my body right now. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is a naturally occurring manure."
I think that is something that is taken as like a cheeky quote, but that is, in the mafia wars, they'd say, we need to have a war every 7 years. It's good to clear the blood, but there's also, it maintains perspective. And the unfortunate truth is, we've known each other for a while now, and I always find our conversations interesting and enlightening, and I learn something. But my worldview, anecdotally, is changing, and I'm finding myself less and less interested in a libertarian worldview, and more in a pragmatic. I think libertarianism is like something that has to be earned, and you cannot have this quote. I trying to say, organize my thoughts here properly. I'm beginning to see libertarianism as just as phony and utopian as I saw communism and socialism growing up.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, if Jefferson had won the political war against Adams and Hamilton, who were Federalists, then we wouldn't be a country anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like libertarianism. You could enumerate this a number of ways. It's the paint, furniture, and art inside of the house after the Federalist walls have been built around it. You could say something like that. You could say that it is the counterbalance to institutionalism, which federalism kind of demands to some degree, but libertarianism says, okay, you can have your institutionalism way up here, but everything else belongs back to us, which is what the 10th Amendment is supposed to be. I think that's a good way to say it too. And call it cheeky or not, but what Jefferson was saying is that we're in a constant battle with government to maintain liberty.
Which is power.
Like liberty isn't something that you have to take from the wild. Bears and hurricanes are not a threat to liberty. Governments are a threat to liberty, and governments alone are a threat to liberty, right? I think it's very clear what he was saying there.
Well, governments are just people, right? So like
that's the thing. That's the part with libertarianism that eventually, that was the fork in the road, or maybe the dead end of the road, where I'm like, oh, this is just, libertarianism is not a standalone ideology. It is a counterbalance to make sure that institutionalism doesn't go too far. And I think it's necessary. And I appreciate the people that have talked about it over the years and for it, like Ron Paul, etc., forced the issue. Even people I disagree with on other stuff who have popularized it, like Dave Smith and people like that. I think it's important what they've done to popularize the idea, but saying that it is a belief system in and of itself, I don't think is true, because this is the end of the road, I guess, that I came to. When you talk to even the most staunch libertarian, or even, I guess, to some degree a moderate, at some point you arrive at, well, we can just come together locally and hire people to do that. I'm like, you just described government, Dan. Like, certainly low, but
government I chose, bro.
Yeah.
I chose it.
Yeah, but that's
there's a narcissism to it, that there's this idea that, like, I don't have to be beholden to any laws that I didn't have a say in making, which ironically is the basis of progressivism and the whole woke thing, where, critical race theory stems out of a 70s thought exercise I believe it was Cal Berkeley law. I could be wrong about that, but there was a law school in California that was essentially like defend the indefensible. You are a defense attorney, and your client is caught standing over a body, knife in hand, bloody. And one of the ways they came up with was, to go back to the Gramsci-esque idea that like the original sin of government is law. I didn't have a say in any of this, so why should I listen to any of it? And it's like, hey, this person never said murder was wrong. Why should he have to live in this? And it's nonsensical. I mean, you can make a theoretical, and that's the thing with Dave Smith and what he's done, what he deserves a lot of credit for, and what the libertarian kind of media machine deserves a lot of credit for is pushing back against the censorship regime that the propaganda state and institutionalized propagandists tried to do. They created a great counter voice. But when it came down to it, Dave could have ran for president and he said no.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes down to it with any libertarian, when the push actually comes to shove, they'd rather write a paper than grab a shovel. Right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's always the question I have for anybody, regardless whether it's a libertarian or anybody else, is like, are you trying to make a point, or are you trying to make an impact? You can do both sometimes, but usually you got to pick. At some point down the road, you got to pick. And to me, that idea that, well, I'm only gonna suffer a government of my choosing, and then I'm gonna cognitively dissonantly call it something else. You know what I mean? It's fine, whatever, do what you want. We're all deluded to some degree, I suppose, but that's super black-pilled, and I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for white-pilled ideas.
It's an anarcho-capitalist commune.
Yeah. I'm looking for ideas that can serve the really good ideas we've had and protect them from the threats instead of attacking even them and throwing the baby out with the bathwater. For example, we should be, instead of libertarians fighting against, and a lot of people do this, right? They call themselves libertarian, or people that just have libertarian ideas, but the focal point should be the Bill of Rights. They shouldn't, libertarians as it were, should not be talking about anything outside of that, right? The Constitution, unfortunately, does allow for states and the federal government to levy taxes against us. What came later with the 17th Amendment is fucked.
Well,
right?
World War I will end any day now.
Yeah.
And
the idea of making a constitutional amendment for a temporary issue was very attractive at the time, I suppose, in the bloodiest war in human history, but that was a mistake. And that's the kind of thing that you should fight against, not to uproot the Constitution and Bill of Rights, but to protect it, right? Like, if we truly protected the Fourth Amendment, we wouldn't have people being able to look into our bank accounts for no reason. But not paying the federal government wouldn't be a crime in the first place, because the state can't be the victim of a crime. You know
in some ways, we've crossed the Rubicon.
Oh yeah, for sure we have now. Yeah.
There's no China specifically, Europe also, but less so. China having the success that they've had with the centralization that they have, and their people being compliant in it, makes it impossible for us in the West. We're going to be fighting an upward battle for the rest of our lives and our children's lives and their children's lives, especially with AI, with the idea that there's 13,000 different data points that they can use to trigger you emotionally in one direction or another. I've been vocal that I think the attack on the white man, quote unquote, over the last 20 years is directly correlated to the fact that the American white man is the most nationalist and independent of all the voting blocs. And once you get rid of that, if you can break that up, or if you can destroy that and get rid of that kind of individualist, freedom-loving fervor, it seems that all of the other demographics, are much more prone to centralization. And if they want this one world government, well, who's standing in their way? The American entrepreneur, the American small business owner who doesn't need the government, who doesn't, isn't worried about sending their kids to college to get 250 grand in debt. I'm building a business. My kids are going to take over the business. We're on a farm. We build our own food. I know how to, clean my own water. And if you come on my land, okay, I'm all right to die for it. Are you okay to die for my land? Because
Yeah.
I'm okay to die for my land. That's for people that have never traveled the world. That's not normal. That's that. There's a very small percentage of the global population, and they just all happen to be here. There's very few people globally. I hope it's waking. I hope it's waking up in other places. See Scotland, that girl coming out there. You know, she might end up being the Joan of Arc for the Scottish to remember their Scotch, Irish, Celtic heritage. But you know, and when I say things like this is in no way anti-black or in no way anti-anything. What I'm saying is that many tribes, one nation is a thing. We can't act like we're not different. And we can't act like we don't have different priorities and we don't have different backgrounds. And I think one of the things that really bother me about, the whole woke thing, just to put a bow on this, is it's taken away this idea that like the only white people deserve a stake in how this country is formed and our victories. It takes away what the Tuskegee Airmen did. It takes away what in World War II, our code breakers, our codes couldn't be broken because Native Americans, right? So I mean, like, everybody has had a hand in this thing, and everybody should feel pride in what this thing is, and everybody should feel like they have a stake in this thing. And they've made it to be like American history is white history, and that's not true. Especially when you consider what white meant 100 years ago. Italians weren't white. Catholics weren't considered white. The Irish were called N-words.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, learn history just a little bit, guys. You don't need to be a geek like me and Jeremy and Dan, but, like, you got to understand where things come from. Because what's the old Voltaire quote? People that can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. You have to understand. The etymology of these things is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of black folk up in Appalachia that won't suffer the federal government encroaching on their territory either. It's not a uniquely white thing; it's a cultural thing. And sometimes, because we're still kind of in the infancy of humanity to some degree, at least in socialized humanity, there is still some racial component. Just because of more due to somebody's nationality, though.
Oh, for
Right.
sure.
It's more because of that. It's less because
I have more in common with an American black than I do a Serbian white.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's if you like, there's a bunch of you can always find videos of black people doing wild shit, and then say inner city black culture is broken. Don't disagree with that, by the way. But none of my black friends behave that way.
Yeah, and it wasn't that way 50 years ago. So we need to look and say, like, how come, what happened in the late 60s? And who was behind that? And why? And, again, it's pretty incredible when there's some people that commit a misdemeanor and they get pulled over immediately and they go to jail immediately. And then there's other people who can leave pallets of bricks all over the place and break windows at riots. And somehow those people never get identified. They never get looked for. I call it a conspiracy all you want. I believe January 6th was a complete and total false flag. I believe there were feds all over the place. Whatever happened with the pipe bomb. I mean, imagine there was a pipe bomb left in front of the first African-American female vice president's headquarters. Nobody wants to know who left the pipe bomb. We're not even talking about that.
Yeah.
We're not investigating that. And I think that's the biggest problem is the lack of trust in our institutions, where 20 years ago we all trusted our institutions. So we can get on board with a little bit of, the left thinks this, the right thinks this, but it was playful. We all believed that they were American and that our institutions had our best interest. And now I think we know they don't. So this when I say we crossed the Rubicon, I don't think there's any going back to moderate bipartisanism. I think, to quote Oliver Wendell Holmes, when two inconsistent groups try to make inconsistent worlds, the only remedy is force. And
Yeah.
I think we're moving in that direction, and this is where the libertarianism comes in. If you have a live and let live, laissez-faire mentality, the people who won't let you live won't let you live. COVID kind of put an end to that fantasy. You have to fight for the world that you want. 5 years ago, if a president released the National Guard in the Capitol, I would have had a seizure over it. Now, having been to D.C., it's like, yeah, why are we always protecting criminals? I just came back from California, and they put the toothpaste in jail, not the criminals. That's an asinine way to live life. That's an asinine way to have a citizen live their life. That you have to call for help to unlock toothpaste because there's so much crime that they won't do anything about. That the businesses have to lock up, $2 toothpaste. Nobody should have to live like that. That's third world bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a lot of this is about what we talked about at the opening, this idea of virtus, and I'll get to that in a second. But the expectation is that you will be an honorable person, and that is the only way that you can gain access to society and the social hierarchy. Right? There's only one ticket for admission, and it's that. Right? You can try to fake doing it, and sometimes you can succeed for some amount of time, but eventually people will find you out. So I think it's twofold. I think partly what you're seeing is, what you're seeing is objectively true, but I think that's part of it, that not only are institutions not trusted, but they're not deserving of trust, and everybody knows it. It's one thing because not trusting institutions can be a temporary thing when bad people are running them, but when the institutions themselves are rotten, now you've got a real problem, right? That can't be solved with just changing out the fucking roster. You got to change the institution itself. And then the other part is that we don't know where we're going or what to aspire to because of a number of reasons. One, we've abandoned the idea of virtus. Two, there's no rites of passage for men in any meaningful way in society any longer. And we don't know who to look up to or what to aspire to individually. So getting rich is not something to aspire to. Getting rich is the result of wanting to be creative or wanting to provide something to the community or wanting to fucking build or whatever it is, these men instincts that we have. But just getting rich, that's the outcome, right? That's not like, this is a big part of our problem these days, is that we focus downstream on the outcome. And as a result, naturally, not through malice, but naturally we will try to find the most efficient path, which creates shortcuts, which is not the way that works, right? It corrupts the process almost always. And then you get the second and third order effects of shit like that, which is solving all of our problems downstream. You mentioned locking up the toothpaste, but not the criminal. That's broken window theory. Another example is gun-free zones, right? Where instead of dealing with a problem upstream and making honorable people that don't have parallel violent economies, we decide to make a collective rule, which we're not collectivists, as far downstream as possible, that one is ineffective and two strips the rights away from people who actually follow the rules, right? The same thing you could say about flag burning. It is protected speech. I don't care what you have to say about that. It sucks, and I'll probably fight you if you do it in front of me, but it is protected speech, and my behavior is not protected, and I'll just have to deal with the consequences of that. However, trying to put people in jail for a year for that is the wrong solution. You're way downstream. You got to way the fuck back upstream to solve that problem. And it's this is what we do, because we don't have, nobody has a goal without a plan, right? If you want to fucking get bigger, you want to learn Spanish, there's a fucking plan. We right now have goals and no plan. We want to be this, I want to be rich, I want to be famous, I want to be this, I want to be that, and I have no plan to get there, and we are rudderless knuckleheads as a result of it.
And Trump is a populist, and he's impulsive, and he doesn't understand precedent. So he thinks he's doing the right thing. Burning the flag is reprehensible. You should go to jail. What our country really struggles with for at least the last 20 years is the difference between shouldn't and can't. You shouldn't burn the flag. It's very different than you can't burn the flag. Because then what happens when Gavin Newsom is president and he decides that you can't say the word faggot, that's a year in jail. Because that's his constituency. That's his base.
Yeah.
MAGA wants to see people go to jail for burning the flag. Gavin Newsom's base wants to see people going to jail for saying the word faggot. Don't think they don't. So if we're going to do impulsive populism as, decree, then we've really jumped the shark here. Now we're in a place where you're creating opportunities for conflict between the state and the citizen. And I think that that's the thing that libertarianism gets right, is that the only way to maximize freedom is to limit the interactions between the state and the citizen as often as possible.
Yeah, because the state is going to do, and I don't think the state is wrong morally to do this. I think it is a structural problem. The state will, because the state is made of human beings who, despite what the bad actors that are there, it's made of human beings that are mostly trying to get it right. But the problem is that they make decisions for the collective, and that's not how we do things here, right?
Also, their only lever is force.
Yeah, when the state, and not only is their only lever force, but there's no self-correction because they can fail and persist.
Is the state going to be like, Dan, I'm going to give you $5,000 to never say faggot again?
Yeah.
Or are they going to be like, Dan, don't say it, or I'm throwing you in jail?
Else, yeah.
Right? So,
but they also don't. But they also don't. In addition to not having the correct levers, which you could call that a free market of ideas, right? They also don't have the self-correction that the free market has, because if government, whether it is from a ruling standpoint or an economic standpoint, if government fails, it persists. They just print or spend more money, right? Like if your company does that, you're out.
It exists to exist.
Yeah. So it's like that's not. The libertarians are right about that, about limiting the interactions, because when the state is large, the individual is small. The state gets it right, in theory, by trying to maximize goodness in a lot of ways. There are bad actors, no question, and the result would have you think otherwise. But I think most of the people, like people that just work for the government in some way, are just trying to do their jobs and do it right. They don't know what the fuck's going on.
In many ways, I think that we should evolve instead of, into individual states and, federal government. We should evolve into a domestic government and a foreign government. It should not be the same government, I don't think. I maybe there should be a president to oversee both of them, but I think we should be electing somebody that oversees domestic policy, and that person should be very, very different than somebody that oversees foreign policy. Not to be overly simplistic, but I think you need a fatherly figure for foreign policy and a motherly figure for domestic policy. I think you need somebody who is going to be caring and empathetic for their own citizens, and then somebody that's going to be ruthlessly aggressive with the outside world.
The Romans had consuls and tribunes in the Senate in those roles. But I would say in addition that what the government is trying to do, which is to what the state often tries to do. Of course, there are plenty of bad actors. These days, maybe it's more than maybe it's the majority. I don't know. At the political level, it's definitely the majority, in my opinion. But at the bureaucratic level, I think most of those people are just trying to do work. There's a lot of leeches. Most of them should be fired, to be honest, just because it's unnecessary. But that's not the point. The point is, are they just malevolent actors, or are they trying to do something at the wrong level? Trying to take care of as many people as possible is the job of the citizen, not of the state. The state's job is to protect us from the outside shit. It is the citizen's job to insulate and take care of all of our people, so that the state doesn't have the availability to come do it, right? When the government shows up and nobody has their hand out, the government has no power there. So if you're a real small government conservative or libertarian person, the most effective thing you can do is solve all the problems in your local fucking neighborhood.
I tend to agree with you, but how do you reconcile that with the mechanized and automated economy that's coming?
What do you mean?
Meaning, as much as I hate centralization, as much as I want to limit bureaucracy, I think that we should get ahead of, and maybe this is something that is a credit to some of these progressives running some of these pilot programs, we should get ahead of a very near future, where AI is coming for everybody's job. And I'm talking lawyers, I'm talking, engineers. We're heading for a future where people that work jobs that they don't even want to work just to get by are not going to have that opportunity. You're not going to be able to be an Uber driver in 5 years. You might not even be able to be a bartender in 5 years. What are we going to do, right, when the economy itself is imploding because there are not enough consumers, because there are not enough people working to consume?
Yeah, well, you got to there will always be consumers no matter what. The problem, what you're going to find with this displaced worker class, if indeed that does become a problem, and it looks like, at least to some
Middle
degree,
class is being eviscerated.
It looks like in the near future it's going to become a bit of a problem. Then you have to, like, if the state wants to get involved and solve these problems, then what they need to do is, because the idea of UBI and shit like that, universal basic income, is crazy. People will become, there will be drug addiction and mass suicide if that happens. I promise you, people completely lose their
Left
ability.
alone to their own devices.
So you could say, and I think this is to some degree fair to do this, if you create a new technology that all of a sudden makes a million jobs irrelevant, you have some responsibility as an entrepreneur to that community to do something, right? I don't know what that something is. Maybe it's some donation. And I to be honest, if it could happen without the state being involved, that would be great. Because if you're smart enough to make that piece of automation, you're probably smart enough to figure out this part too, which is I'm going to spend, 2-3% of my profits retraining, reskilling people for this new industry that I want to work on. Now let's do that, right? The biggest part of that, the only way that it could possibly be successful is if the government is not involved, because the government's going to come in and try to regulate. It's going to make the new technology not worth it anymore to that person, which is probably by design, by the way. And then the government's going to try to take control of that. There's the Master Switch by Tim Wu talks about this stuff. So these barriers to starting a business should have to be lowered. Less licensing, lower tax rates, fewer regulations on all that stuff. And then, of course, the things that people, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs list stuff, has to drop cost-wise significantly at that point, right? So people have the ability to have their existential needs met as they're doing these reskills and shifts and whatnot in the workforce.
You can reskill as many people as you want. There are not going to be that many people with over 120 IQs to be able to work in these fields and do these things.
No, but I think there's some.
You talk about corporate charity?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think that should be the standard.
Well,
and I think that especially if they're, you got to think. Right now, Intel's main, for example, and I'm just using Intel as an example, their main customer technically is their shareholder, but their main customer is the U.S. government, and this was before the government took a 10% stake. Yeah,
good thing all those people died fighting socialism and communism in Vietnam, huh?
Well, this is more national socialism, actually.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, it's fascism for a federal government to take ownership in private industry.
Can't be.
Well, it is. So. And they're like Letnick's talking about doing it with the military-industrial complex as well, which is even worse. This is literally what Germany did, by the way. Yeah. People invoke that, all this, literal Nazis. Like
the trains run on time.
Nazis didn't just hate Jews. They also nationally socialized their industries.
It's an interesting thing. We're not allowed to look at the successes of Nazi Germany, obviously, because of the atrocities and we've said it before on Drinking Bros. All history is war propaganda anyway. But it should be studied. I mean, the guy completely turned Germany's economy around from a destitute, war-torn nation to back to being a world power, and he did it in 10 years. So a lot of that was slave labor. But I also find myself not caring, oddly enough. I make a joke about it. Oddly enough, I make a joke about it on your show, and now Joey Marino is trying to do it. Joey for Senate's trying to say like it was his thing. Conquer Somalia. If they're not going to use it, you got all that coastline, you got all those resources. As we get into, I would rather see that I would rather see, instead of, corporate charity and this idea of keeping the American workforce on, some billionaire's teat. Hey, look, go east, young man. 40 acres and a mule.
Well, I don't believe in corporate charity as a matter of regulation. I think it's a smart thing for them to do, because if there isn't idea, investment, production, consumption, then there is no economy. So whatever AI that's doing whatever work you're doing has no intrinsic value. There's no store of value to represent the fucking labor that you've done, right?
Sure.
So even from the corporatist standpoint, and this Henry Ford, another guy that kind of seemed to like National Socialism a little bit, Henry Ford reduced the cost of his automobiles not because he was a good guy, because he understood economics.
Yeah.
Like, if more people can buy my car, and if the people who work for me also can buy it, then I'm going to get the best possible product and the best results out of that, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is something, when you say corporate charity, I'm thinking of how Henry Ford handled it, not like the government saying, well, you got to pay for this or pay for that. The government shouldn't be involved in this at all, because they will only slow it down and fuck it up. There's the only two things the government's good at doing is slowing things down and fucking them up.
Well, pretty good killing.
Not as good as me. But but it's and stealing your money. I guess they're pretty
killing,
good at that,
kidnapping,
too.
stealing your money.
Yeah,
they're pretty good.
But yeah, it's like these are the things that I think about when it comes to, like, even from a libertarian position. Like, there's no this idea that we're going to tax the shit out of automation and just pay people as a result of that. Not going to happen. And if it does, it'll be fucking disastrous.
Again, I look at Eastern Europe, I look at Africa, and I say, man, these places need to be brought into the 20th century, not even the 21st century. Imagine how much work is there. Imagine how much work can be done modernizing those places. And then I wonder, is it a psyop that we've been, taught to believe, after my whole life believing that, all the Romans, the Greeks, you learn about the Egyptians, you learn about the Moors, you learn about Genghis Khan and the great conquerors throughout history. All of a sudden the page turns to 2008, and now conquering is a bad thing, modernizing is a bad thing, evolution's a bad thing.
So is war.
I hear that.
And it is a bad thing, but it's war. I mean, if somebody picks a fight with you, then, if you're the bigger guy, you kind of hang out for a minute, like, relax, dude. You don't want to do this. I've been in that situation before, probably on both ends of that conversation. When I used to do jiu-jitsu back in the day, just like, and it wasn't arrogance. It was more just like, I want to see, like, how much better this guy really is. But often I would be told, you don't want to do that. You want to do that. I'm like, well, I mean, just choke me out and be done with it, dude. It's not a big deal. But more in the bar scene, it's more like fucking little dudes chirping. You're like, oh, come on, man. I don't want to do this. My shirt's nice.
Sure.
And it's, no matter if I win this or not, it's getting fucked up with either blood or it's getting stretched out. I don't want to do this. I'm fucking this. And also this Yamazaki tastes really good. And I'm not trying to fucking lose that either.
But you were talking about Rome before, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know, because our history is taught so poorly. The barbarians wanted to be Romans. Many of them wanted to be Romans.
Well, they considered themselves to be Romans. Nobody called them the Byzantines until way later.
Oh, well, the Byzantines is a whole different thing. I mean, that's Charlemagne and the Pope. That's completely bullshit. They were Romans. There was no such thing as the Byzantines. That's like calling America, America Falls or something like that, and they call the Southeast, where America is still trying to keep on, like, something else. It's Rome. They moved the capital. Well, America's moved its capital. America's first capital was New York, or Philadelphia. I forget which one was which, and then D.C. was third capital. So, do we not count that as the United States of America? Do we not count those places as the United States? Do we not count California as the United States of America because it was not part of the original coastal formation?
Yeah, it's retarded. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think I don't mind the idea. I think if we talked about it earlier, actually, today, if there was like you wouldn't even need a draft in my opinion. If there was a sign-up sheet to go reinvade Europe and do it, let's call it what it is, do a little bit of ethnic cleansing and return Europe back to the people it belongs to, just like the Crusades did a number of times, and always under provocation, by the way. It never just happened. I'd sign up for that.
Would you?
Yep, I would.
I think Europe's got to fight its own battles.
To some degree, but they need some help. We all need some help. We had the French Navy.
I'd sign up for taking over a few acres of coastline in Somalia.
Yeah, I mean, Somalia's not a big. Well, the coastline part of it is large.
Yeah. Largest continuous coastline in all of Africa.
But it's not a huge country by area, right? Because it's kind of skinny on the coast there. Yeah, you could probably do that. I think back though to, and you might be onto something with taking on more territory, because if you look historically at how creative destruction has been handled well. Creative destruction is a new kind of technology that displaces a lot of workers, right? Like the cotton gin is a good example of it. One of the solutions, so let's say the agricultural to industrial shift during the Industrial Revolution here in the United States in the 18th and 19th centuries, what happened was urban migration. People left the country and came into cities, right? So if you're seeing the people left the country, came into cities, and now the jobs, these industrial jobs that are in cities are going to be, to a large degree, automated, then the most sensible idea is to send these people back out into the hinterland to do what? Well, we've got a huge farming crisis. Our farmers have gone away, not by their own choosing, by the way. They've been bankrupted by the United States and the stupid shit we do. So I see a lot of opportunity is what I see. I see capital investment firms, instead of trying to do nefarious shit like BlackRock and Blackstone do. Blackstone, the hedge fund, where Blackstone funds BlackRock to go buy up a bunch of houses and then price them out of people's market and then rent them back to them forever, right? Which is a super fucked up and nefarious thing to do. I think, is there one goddamn hedge fund out there that's not good enough, not moral enough, but smart enough to see what's happening with automation and say, if I start companies or develop modes of transportation that work with it, or any of the ancillary stuff that has to happen to move people into the city and out of the city for work or whatever else, and then develop the work that happens outside of the city now, which is going to be necessary again, I could make trillions with a T of dollars, right? This would be the new railroad project. And why is nobody jumping on this?
Have you ever seen the land that America ceded that they had conquered in Mexico? The Mexican-American War.
Yeah.
We took over Mexico.
Yeah.
Look it up, good people, all of it. General Lee drove them asses down right to Mexico City. We had it all. But they were fighting over the Great Compromise, where every state, the new territories were turning into states, and it was slave state, non-slave state. Polk was like, no, we're good, man. We don't want... Also, there was definitely a tinge of racism to it, where he's like, we don't need all these brown people. But we took it over. We had Mexico. Like, it was like we had it. All of Baja California, all of it down to Mexico City. It was ours. Could have had the whole continent. They didn't want it. And then, obviously, we had our 20th century foreign policy where... the idea, I guess, if we wanted to be humanitarian, was, well, we can extract just as much wealth out of a place by putting up McDonald's and Starbucks there without having to subdue an entire, continent, right? So in many ways, capitalism killed imperialism. And it's funny that capitalism is in the crosshairs all the time, but it actually was the most humanitarian thing to happen. You don't have to take over a nation anymore to extract its resources. But what oddly enough has happened is we've gone into, we have created a vacuum for the American middle class because we cannot compete globally at a labor perspective. We just can't. There's no amount of tariffs in the world that are going to make American labor be able to compete with slave labor. Right? So if we're going to have a global economy, we have to have global rules. And if you have someone like China that refuses to play by the rules and they just steal all your IP and then use their slaves to make it for 1/10 of the price and then sell it back to your own people, And then, again, this is where libertarians, supply side, well, it's much cheaper. Yeah, who gives a shit if this is worth $3 instead of 10 if I can't make my $5 anymore? I don't have jobs, right?
Yeah.
So we need to start looking.
Yeah.
And we need to start, and I know that this is, to a certain person, what I'm saying is absolutely horrific. And I'm okay with that. But taking over, and I keep going to Somalia, you can't think of a more humanitarian thing to do for not only the current but future generations of Somalians than to have American infrastructure and business come in there.
Yeah, it's been pretty good for India was a lot better off when Britain was in charge.
So was Hong Kong, so was Southeast Asia.
South Africa. It's like a lot of places were better off.
Yeah.
There's a couple of tenets to not just surviving through creative destruction historically, but also thriving through it. One of them is labor flexibility, which is like you have to be able to get people to the jobs that are available, right? Like we're going to bring back American manufacturing to a large degree, and it'll be good. It's not going to have, I don't think most of it will happen inside cities. And the American manufacturing we create now, 20 years from now, will be automated. So this is a short-term solution. It will help in the short term.
What are we going to do about power?
We need to build 25 to 30 nuclear reactors in the next 10 years, or we're fucked.
And do you think that we're going to be able to get through the bureaucracy and the environmental bureaucracy to do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's the new space race, right?
Yeah.
The power grid to be able to power LLMs and AI.
Yeah. We're in the two races now are energy and AI for the most part. To some degree, the third one that may become one at some point when it becomes a little bit more feasible is mining and space for energy resources and other rare earth stuff and like that. But right now it's AI and energy.
Well, that's to go back to the Rome analogy. The dictator is an interesting thing. Where if you're in a time of peace, okay, we can kumbaya, libertarian. Every vote matters. We're all voting. Yay! Look at us go. And then if there's the barbarians are at the gate, we got to go to the farm and get Cincinnatus and say, hey, buddy, I know that we kind of kicked you out. And, can you come back and save us? And again, Sulla's remembered as a villain. He's taught as a villain. To me, Marius is the villain. Marius is the guy that wouldn't leave. Marius is the guy that came back 6, 7 times, was jealous of Sulla, and then Sulla comes back. And it's never the guy that punches. It's always the guy that punches back, right? And everybody remembers his conscriptions. And, your name's up on the wall. Your life is forfeit.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, I think that there's value in that. I think that there's a lot of people that if you were a part of January 6th and you were part of our government and you're paid for by the taxpayers and you use your power and your influence and your privilege to incite this riot, and then a 60-year-old cancer-ridden grandma did 6 months in jail, but you have some sort of bureaucratic immunity?
She comes on the show sometimes.
Does she?
Yeah.
She did jail.
Yeah.
As part of a false flag. But the people that set up that false flag, they have bureaucratic immunity? The police chief's testimony gets to be silenced?
Yeah.
Okay, for me, draconian, put that motherfucker's name on the wall.
Yeah, but the second and third order effects are Sulla launched what would become essentially a 100-year civil war in Rome, right? Yep. Like whomever crossing the Rubicon literally, and in introducing this idea, and it's remarkable how close his story is to Pompey actually, because he was also a pleb.
Pompey was his number 2.
Yeah, but it's like the story is the same, and maybe he chose Pompey for that reason. Nice Pompey, but Nice Pompey Magnuson. Maybe he chose him for that reason, but it was both plebs both rose to military power and fame first, and then became wealthy, and then became consul. And
Sulla was a bit of a fuck up.
Yeah, but so was Caesar a little bit. Caesar was broke as shit all the time. He wanted power so bad he spent all his money on it. But the point is, Sulla kicked off he didn't kick it off necessarily.
Well, that's why he went to Gaul. They wanted to bring him back.
Yeah.
Caesar, they everybody kept thinking it was a power thing. He owed too many people too much money. He was like, I think I'll stay here.
Well, he made a lot of money in Gaul, so. Still, and they spent all of it, like 3 million sesterci, something like that. But yeah, that's yeah. So definitely, Sulla shows one thing above all else is that strong leadership is preferable to weak leadership, even if it's bad, right?
But it goes back to what you were saying before. The institutions. I tend to agree with your point there, and this is how. Look, history is just. It's all how we interpret it. But when I read Plutarch, I think those institutions were corrupt beyond saving. I think that, the tribunes were completely bought off. And I think Marius had, and I believe it was Crassus, right? Was it, I got to remember. These guys all have the same names. But they were unreasonable. He tried to be reasonable. They were unreasonable. They sent him away. He saved legions multiple times through remarkable diplomacy and really trickery, and then they sabotaged them, and then they apologized because there was a civil war happening. Remember, the rest of the Italian peninsula were not allowed to be Roman citizens.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what like the Rubicon North, right? Something like that. I don't remember what the cutoff was. Actually.
Not the Rubicon. It was
the Rhine.
Yeah, the Arno, I think.
Oh, okay.
The Arno.
Oh, the Rhine's in Germany.
Yeah, and but he goes. They send him away, and then while he's away, they give all these people citizenship, and then wouldn't you know it that they vote Marius in consul? Isn't that incredible, right? So and Marius always seemed to me to be like almost like Rudy. Like the guy who always felt disrespected, like he never got enough respect. I never, because he grew up poor as well. Very impressive guy. Great, bureaucratic leader, formalizing the legions. But I don't know. I look at Sulla a bit like a hero. I know he's recorded as a history's monster, kind of Thanos. But, that bureaucracy needed to be cleansed. And he didn't, and he wasn't, he could have been dictator for life. He acquiesced. Right? And yeah, what happened with Caesar and what happened with Octavian, I don't know. I guess you could say Sulla was the beginning of the end of democracy in Rome or in Europe, in the world.
Definitely of the Republic.
For what? 1,000 years? Magna Carta?
Yeah, I mean that even the Magna Carta only extended to the barons, though. It wasn't until, and this wasn't necessarily in effect, and you can see it concurrent with the Protestant Reformation, but it wasn't until an agreement of the people that anybody ever wrote a formalized document that said that everybody had rights, and they didn't get them from the king.
Well, the pirates too, right? Down in Nassau, wasn't that the idea?
Barbary guys?
Yeah, no, it was Nassau. They created the pirate republic.
That, yeah.
It's like the first plural democracy. Who knows what's real and what's not about that? But even the Magna Carta, how'd they get the king to sign?
Well, two ways. One by threat of death, and the other one by threat of getting taken over by King. Was it Philip?
So what is
France?
power?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. What do you mean?
So what I'm saying is, to circle back to the original conversation, like what rights people have. If you cannot keep what you have, do you deserve to have it? That is the law of the jungle to me. That is, if you're going to play this game, where government gets out of hand to me is when they start using these levers of power against people that aren't playing the game. When the government starts, flexing on its citizens like we saw with the draconian tyrannical governments, especially the communist governments of the 20th century, that's foul play. That's too far. That needs humanitarian intervention. But if it's Sulla versus Marius and we're both generals, one of us has to win.
Yeah, I mean that. So when these days we don't do it that way. We don't have wars typically over that stuff. We have political fights. And again, I'll bring it back to the tenets that work and the ones that don't when it comes to handling creative destruction. Labor flexibility, being able to move people to where the jobs are. Capital mobility is a big part of it. Not having super high fucking interest rates for no reason, like we do right now.
Don't you think the threat of violence for lack of a better term, would help expedite some of these situations? Like,
No.
what? You don't?
I don't think Trump calling Jerome Powell on the phone and saying that he's going to kill him if he doesn't do something has any effect on him. As a matter of fact, we know even in law enforcement it doesn't have an effect. All the studies done that show sliding scales with punishment up to and including capital punishment have little to no effect on whether or not somebody commits a crime. Like people will murder, even if people murder at the same or higher rates in states that have the death penalty than they do in states that don't.
What do you think about public shame then? Maybe murder's a bit much, but we go get the CEO, the entire board of Visa and MasterCard.
Who's we?
Well, that's the thing, right? Who's we? People that are out here getting hammered with 24% credit cards. You know, people that are sitting here wondering why is everything more expensive, and nobody ever brings up the fact that every time a business has to swipe a card, it's a 3% fee, and also those people charge you 24% to use the card. Where's that money going?
I mean, some dude 3D printed a gun and shot a dude in the back for similar stuff, right? I don't recommend that either. I think these problems are big because we are big. That's the issue, right? And we were intended to be small. We've allowed it to become big. I don't think there's anything you can do to affect this system at the size that it is. Frankly, I think the only solution is decentralization, and we've seen that work quite well over time. The more power that gets taken back down to the lowest possible level, the better things are. Now, sometimes
how do you decentralize credit score though?
you make it irrelevant.
I don't know.
Why so buddies of mine founded and started a bank called Old Glory Bank. Right, it's Larry Elder's on the board, Sean Spicer's on the board. We just had the CEO on yesterday, co-founder. Mike Rings, the Air Force veteran. John Rich from Big and Rich is on the board.
No shit.
Who else? Larry Elder, Dr. Ben Carson's on the board. The former governor of Oklahoma's on the board, and they don't play that bullshit. I mean, obviously they use. They have to, by federal law, to some degree, use the rates as a measure about what to do. But as far as like scores and predatory lending and stuff like that, they just refuse to participate, right? So the solution to bad is always more good, not other bad. That's always the case, because other bad just gets you worse down the line. It catches up to you at some point, which is why, having more capital out into the world available to people, even the reskilling, re-educating thing, the middle class in this country is largely a result of the GI Bill, right? These, 16 million or so, or 8 million, I can't remember what the number was. The dudes who deployed to World War II and their predecessors who had deployed to World War I were now eligible to go to school basically for free. Mm-hmm. So you can go get an education. A lot of it was skills, like not necessarily a 4-year bachelor's degree, because who needed one back then, Yeah. But
who needs one now?
Yeah. There was a period that was relevant, but only for about 30-40% of people. They made a requirement for 95% of people, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, that helped. And then, I think as a result of all that stuff, is twofold. One, it's societal support, and then it's institutional support. When the institutions see that things are working well, they tend to be like, all right, let's not touch it because we're getting credit for this shit. You know what I mean? And the social support flows as a result of that. And then downstream of all that, of course, is the not only return to trust to the institutions, but institutions that can indeed be trusted to as much as they can ever be, right? When you see it fail really badly is when you see rigid labor markets. That was the case during the Great Depression. Nobody could move anywhere to do anything. Mm-hmm. You were stuck in the city you were in, so everybody's poor together. And there's bread lines, right? Capital hoarding or collapse is a big thing. That's what's happening right now. Capital hoarding is happening right now because of Jerome Powell unnaturally keeping the rates high.
For sure.
It's one man in this country is doing that shit. That can't be. That's got to be.
Pray nothing happens to him.
Yeah, something has to be changed about that.
Who voted for the Fed Reserve?
Nobody. Yeah, well, senators, because it's a constitutional amendment, I guess, right?
Yeah.
1913.
Who has a say in Federal Reserve bureaucracy?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Except for those
Who
assholes.
voted for credit score?
Well, that's a private industry thing.
Sure, but it's definitely a cartel. There's three of them, and
certainly
they
a
all.
cartel, yeah.
And it's in what way is that not corporate collusion?
Yeah. The other big one though is a lack of education and retraining, and we think of that. We always think of that as going up. Like, oh, everybody's got an associate's. Things are getting tough. We got to get everybody bachelors or masters or whatever. Like, no, we need to fucking take people. There's way too many people in American universities. Send them to truck driving school and send them to a 2-year computer technical school so that we don't have to bring H-1Bs over to do either one of those fucking jobs.
Illegals are doing truck driving.
Yeah,
man,
it's
and they're
fucking
doing it
crazy.
For cents on the dollar.
Well, that can't happen. That can't happen. That's got to be. I think we need to adopt some of these more stringent policies. I've talked about this before. I actually wrote a paper for my master's on this. We should issue, if we do indeed need some migrant labor, and we do for farming, we need migrant labor, and here's why. I don't want a guy. There's a 3-month window of harvest. I don't want a guy who only works 3 months out of the year. I don't want that to be an American citizen.
Yeah, that was Grapes of Wrath. All those
pretty
guys
much,
ended up being, vagrants and vagabonds.
Yep.
And,
for 9 months out of the year, right? And then every year you lose some of them because of this thing or that thing. Yeah. No, I'm fine giving a federal work permit to you have verified Mexicans, Guatemalans, whomever wants to come up here, do that work. We're going to tax the remittance. You're not taking it all back. You're not stealing money out of our economy, which is what's happening now. There should be like a pretty hefty remittance on that. But yeah, we can do that because I don't want that guy sitting around for 9 months. But jobs that are persistent, driving trucks, doing tech work, no, that's an American, right?
I enjoy your perspective on incentive, but I think that we need to provide disincentive. I actually like Trump tweeting at Soros and his son. Something I've said for 3 years now, that this is a RICO statute. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the power of protest. I do not believe that billionaires have the right to finance civil disobedience. I do not believe that billionaires have the right to burn down American cities. And that is a RICO case, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. They should have been arrested. Somebody bought those bricks. Somebody organized these groups. Somebody wrote those routes. All of those people should be arrested.
Yeah, and they're talking about doing RICO now. It'll never happen, though.
They should.
They
burn their resources.
Yeah.
Now again, slippery slope. When it ain't no fun when the rabbits got the gun. When people I disagree with are in.
Sure, but just enforce the goddamn law, man. You don't have to make any. There's no new law, no new statute needs to be made. Just enforce the law as it is.
That's the immigration argument, right? I mean,
yeah. Just enforce the law as it is, because if a precedent is set that if somebody fucking puts bricks outside and then hires people at $2,500 a month to come fucking do riots, I don't care.
Professional riots.
I don't give a fuck. Well, actually, it's $75,000 a year is the going rate right now.
Is that right?
Yeah. I don't give a fuck if there's an
and they
R.
bust these people in and shit too, huh?
Yeah, paying for everything, yeah. I don't care if there's an R at the end of their name or a D or any other fucking letter. That person belongs in prison.
Yeah, I
Period,
agree.
right? Like you're being, and not only do you belong in prison, I'm talking about the coordinators, but also the rioter,
The
right?
professional agitator.
It's one thing if you are at a public event, just knowing
Community organizing.
Yeah, just knowing what I know about group psychology and stuff like that. You're at a fucking protest or something and shit goes sideways and you fucking break something, whatever, man. I mean, give them a ticket. But if I find out you got paid to be there, now you're going to jail.
So what do you think the role of disincentive is in this? I've been saying one of the things that I would love seeing out of the Trump administration, and one of the things I think they've really blown, is I would love to see student loan forgiveness. I think they're blowing it with the younger generation, because to me it's not about, hey, pay your bills. It's a consumer protection thing. Like, it's the lemon law. You got sold a lemon. If somebody said you had to come to school for 5 years to learn fucking communications and you were going to come out of this thing with a $100,000 a year job, and then, you had to come back and get your master's because now you're going to be a teacher for $45,000 a year, you got sold a bill of goods. You should be able I should be able to take my degree and turn it back in for my money. Here's my degree. I give it back. I'm no longer a college graduate. Same way, if I have a car that doesn't work, I can give it back. Right? I think that it would solve so many problems with the economy if the younger generation was not strapped with trillions of dollars of debt. And also if these schools, now the thing is, student loan forgiveness should not be a burden on anybody's neighbor. This has nothing to do with the American taxpayer. The schools should be liable for this.
Yeah.
You should be allowed to sue the schools. You should be allowed to get the schools back. Harvard and their $33 billion in endowments. More?
Almost 60.
60 billion.
It's 58, I think. Yeah.
So what is that as far as like international GDP? Where would that put them?
That's a good question.
Would that make them like the 30th richest country on earth?
Probably somewhere in like the 60s.
Somewhere in the 60s. So Harvard's endowment makes them the 60s, and I believe they can invest that tax-free, if I'm correct.
They invested tax-free, and they make more on the interest from their endowment each year than they do on enrollment.
Of course. Then they got the balls to get government funding from the taxpayer as well.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, some of that a lot of that government funding is in health research that develops products that then is a net benefit. This is the idea, right? So just steel manning it. But yeah, my idea, I agree with you. I've been saying this since it very first became like, I know this is a hot button issue, and your idea of what we call student loan forgiveness is that the taxpayers pay for it. That is off the table. Completely unacceptable. But the idea that all of our 25 to 35-year-olds can't afford a home because of their debt is fucked, right? And it'd be one thing if it was like legitimate in some way, and if they were getting the value back out of it, which is not true most of the time. Sometimes it's true, most of the time it's not. But one, they signed it when they were 18 for the most part. Well, you can fucking sign up to go to war, and you can sign up for a fucking $100,000 in debt, but you can't drink yet.
That's right.
Fucking
slow down, you can sign up for $100,000 in debt for education, but if I came in with you with a business plan,
get fucked.
With zero fucking collateral,
get fucked. So I think that you mentioned the endowments. I think the endowments of these universities need to be taxed until that's paid off, until the student loans are paid off. And I think you could also fine the banks for predatory lending and use that as part of it too. We're talking about...
You have to have disincentive here. You have to.
Oh yeah, consequences matter. They always matter, right? And the consequences are the left and right limits. They're the lines on the freeway that you need to stay in, right? Yeah. And back to the second order effects of that, we're stretching the housing market from both ends right now. We're increasing the prices by letting these assholes buy up and rent them back out to people. But we're also taking people's ability away to gain upward mobility. If I can't remember, I think it was one of my buddies on Twitter. I think it was Dale Stark. He's a former A-10 pilot. He said, deport people until the average 27-year-old can afford a home.
Well, I mean, that sounds terrible until you realize, like, we were told that there was 12 million illegal aliens, then it was 20 million, and now it's estimates of like 60 million. That's 20% of our population. That's 1 in every 5 people. I mean, that's insane. That's an insane thing. And we don't have 20% more jobs. Our economy has not been growing at 20%. We've been contracting. So
55 million immigrants in this country right now.
That we know
fucking
about. That we know about.
That's wild. I can't even, it's hard to conceptualize that, to be honest. But yeah, and
I'm a grandson of an immigrant. I like immigrants, and I love people that want to be here in America. I wish we could trade 1 for 1 some blue-haired Berkeley fucking lunatic for somebody from Guatemala that wants to come here and actually work. Let me do a 1 for 1 trade, easy, light work. But the American middle class is under attack. And again, one of the reasons I keep bringing up the credit score, one of the things that I knew Black Lives Matter was full of shit from the jump is they kept talking about wealth inequality and white privilege, this and that, but they never once brought up credit score. Not once. There is no bigger driver of wealth inequality in the world than credit score, where you give rich people who already have money access to unlimited amounts of money, and then you give it to them at lower rates. So if I'm already rich, I can take out a loan for $100 million at 8%, put it into Bitcoin, and just pay the loan back and just have it's a free money glitch.
Yeah, somebody should do a video on that sometime about how capital is leveraged for investment.
Yeah.
I don't think the average American understands that. It isn't that hedge fund X is putting $10 million of its own money up. That's not how that works.
I've made all my money on margin option trading.
Yeah, the hedge fund puts up $1 to $2 million in collateral. They leverage it into 10. They invest the 10. They make the interest on the 10, and they pay back the 1 to 2.
They try to go 7s and 10s.
Yeah.
They try to take money out at 7% for a guaranteed 10%. This is why everybody loves indexes. You know, you don't go to high volatility stuff. I don't want to go too far off here, but like indexes, you can just basically guarantee 10%. So if you can get the money for 7%, when you factor in fees and your time, you have basically a 2.5% margin there.
Yeah.
So your money alone for every 100 grand, you know, is worth 25 grand.
Yeah, you're making, I mean, a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So this is something that, you know, maybe we need to be, maybe this is the new, maybe we're in a financial revolution instead of an industrial revolution now, where
if you want to talk about re-education, sorry to cut you off, this would be a big thing for people to understand this. This would be a big thing for the normal everyday person.
I think teaching, like, why are we not educating Americans on how to manage currency and trade in foreign currency and Bitcoin or all of the fucking coins that are available that are legitimate stores of value and not a fiat currency, you know what I mean?
They actually do the opposite. They use terminology and they try to make it seem way more complicated than it is.
It seems like a good opportunity to, because in the late 90s, but mostly through the 2000s during the opioid epidemic, through the Rust Belt, it was just learn to code.
Oh, no.
Asshole. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. Right?
That's AI came. Can you imagine that poor bastard?
That's not bad advice, but what did you do to push that ball down the road? Did you incentivize universities to give people fucking certificates that you can get a job with to code or associate's degrees and not have to have a 4-year general studies bachelor degree for no fucking reason that costs you $50,000 at a minimum? Doesn't make any sense, right? I think, you know, our best and brightest are not typically involved in government, unfortunately. There's a lot of them now. Trump brought a lot of pretty smart people in. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I think some focus on the future where here are the emerging industries. Here's geographically where we think they're going to be. Here are the connections between where people are geographically now and where they need to be to do those jobs. Here's potentials for travel back and forth or rehoming, building new homes in those areas. Here's how we're going to do energy and water and food there and all this stuff. All of that shit that I just said, those are jobs. Every single fucking touch point.
And good paying jobs.
Yeah, well-paying jobs. Every single touch point in that process is a new job for somebody else. It's going to last 15 to 25 years at a minimum because that's how long it takes to build infrastructure. So what the fuck are we doing sitting around? We did this during the goddamn railroads. Cities popped up all over the country because we were building railroads.
Talks about
when we were building the international highway system.
It's the global economy, though. Dude, I just found out 90% of our destroyers, our Navy destroyers, are built in China. That can't be real, right?
I don't know about built-in, but a lot of the steel comes from there.
What the fuck? So 90% of our pharmaceuticals. So like if China was really this great enemy, this threat that we keep hearing that they are, they could just throw a little bit of fentanyl on everybody's heart medication and half the population's gone.
China's not a threat to us in any meaningful way. They steal our shit and they try to fucking backdoor us.
Yeah.
That's it.
They undercut us.
Militarily speaking, they're not a threat. But I don't know if you remember this, but when fucking Moonbeam out there was rebuilding the Bay Bridge, and between Oakland and San Francisco, they bought a shit ton of Chinese steel, and the rivets started popping off of it, and they had to go back and buy they spent like $15 billion more to build that bitch or something like that.
Is that right?
Crazy, yeah.
That makes sense.
Anyways, the government sucks.
Well, let me tell you this before we leave, if you don't mind, because I had an idea, and let me get your, you know, talk about the difference between, you know, the way we want the world to be and the way the world is. I have an idea for a movie where I get like 6 people and we all get $100,000 student loans, or actually less, go to like junior college for like $5,000, and we get student loans for $5,000, and we finance the movie by joining the film department at the junior college. So I can't get, so the idea behind the movie is I can't get financing for the movie, but we all can get student loans. So the whole cast and crew take on $5,000 worth of student loans, and we make the movie, and the movie's kind of a documentary about how we make the movie, and we use the student loans to finance the movie. We actually don't go to any other classes. All we do is join the film club and use all their gear and use everything.
Why don't you just do that in real life?
I know, because I got to pull the trigger on it, but I think that would be hilarious. Where like, you know, the beginning of the movie is me going into a bank trying to get like 30 grand for the movie and then being like, no way. And then being like, well, you know, 6 of us are going to go to JUCO. And they're like, okay, here's 5 grand each in student loans. Enjoy.
I think you should do that.
That'd be kind of funny.
You should literally just go to the school and do it. As a matter of fact, you could almost certainly find what do they call SCADs? You could find one of those schools to do it and to participate in that, I bet.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, it would be a huge fucking promotion for them.
That'd be hilarious.
There's one in
Savannah?
Fuck, is it Savannah? Yeah, I think it's Savannah, yeah. I think our old producer, Alec, went there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should. That would be really funny. It's a good idea. But now you've said it out in public, so everybody's going to steal it.
I hope somebody does. It'd be funny. I was going to say. It's kind of like a Tropic Thunder deal. Like we'll do the movie inside the movie, and then it's like, you know, where's our sound guy?
Or it's like,
he's actually in class. It's like, no, you're not actually going to class. Well, I got a big test coming up. But you're fucking 42.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
There's no test. What are you talking about? It's like The Greatest Song in the World by Tenacious D.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
This is a reference to, yeah. Government sucks, but comedy doesn't. Comedy's good. And you do comedy. Where are you doing comedy?
I'm at the
This
mothership.
is out next week.
Oh, it's out next week? Yeah. Then I'm not at the mothership. I just filmed my half hour. It'll come out soon on Normal World, Blaze TV. Check it out. And, yeah, man, check me out at Gerard vs. Evil. I got a whole bunch of shows coming up. I'll be in the Northeast, and I'll be in Canada. And then I got New Year's Eve in Cuyahoga Falls. Come to that. But, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sweet. Yeah, New Year's Eve, that's a while from now.
I slept in my own bed 21 days in the last 90. I'm pretty much taking October, November off.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.